Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of The Fantasy Birds. Today, we are going over 5 league-winning running backs in your fantasy football 2022 drafts this upcoming season. Let's not waste your time. Let's hop into our top 5 league-winning running backs. The first guy we're going to talk about today is going to be Breece Hall, the new running back for the New York Jets. Jets actually trade up in the draft to get Breece Hall in the early second round. That shows how confident they are in this running back to be their number one guy. They put the draft capital into Hall to go ahead and jump the Houston Texans in the early second round, knowing that the Texans are looking to grab a running back. Hall profiles to be one of the most talented running backs in the NFL. Day one, he steps into the league. His numbers at the NFL Combine blew every other running back out the water. Hall's speed at a 4.39 40-yard dash puts him as the elite category at the running back position given his size. People are comparing Breece Hall's talent profile to the likes of Jonathan Taylor coming out of Wisconsin a couple years back. We're not necessarily saying Breece Hall is going to be Jonathan Taylor, but he does profile to be that kind of power back with the breakaway speed that we've seen Jonathan Taylor utilize the past couple of seasons. Not only does Breece Hall have the elite size and speed that you want in a league-winning running back, but he also has the pass-catching ability, which is going to work out very favorably for him in New York. People are hesitant to draft Breece Hall in the 4th round, given he's on the New York Jets, who, let's face it, has been an absolute dumpster fire for the past 5 years. But with Breece Hall's pass-catching ability, he will not be able to be game scripted out. Even if the Jets are trailing, he's going to be involved in the offense, getting those short passes from quarterback Zach Wilson, who's made quite a name for himself this offseason for multiple reasons. But Breece Hall, with that pass-catching ability, his size and speed combination, he's a great pick in the 4th round to win your leagues. We've seen the first running back taken in the NFL draft do great things in fantasy in year one. Just to name a couple guys, Ezekiel Elliott, Saquon Barkley, Najee Harris, Josh Jacobs. These are all the first running backs taken in their respective drafts, and we've seen what they've done in year one. So these running backs have clearly shown they're given the opportunity, if they have the talent profile to be selected the first running back in their drafts, they will perform in the NFL, even in their rookie season. People are doubting Breece Hall's breakout capability in year one for Michael Carter purposes. I'm here to say Michael Carter is not going to be a problem for Breece Hall. Hall is infinitely better at every single aspect at the running back position. He's a much bigger, faster, stronger, and a better pass-catching running back than Michael Carter. Yes, Carter does some great things in the pass-catching game, but he's nowhere near as elusive and as strong as Breece Hall should be, even in year one. We're not worried about Michael Carter, a guy drafted later in the draft this past season. Breece Hall is going to get that heavy workload, and even if the Jets struggle, which they should be a bit better this season, adding Garrett Wilson, Zach Wilson coming into year 2, this offense should look a lot better, especially with Breece Hall behind it. And we're loving him in the 4th round, getting potentially a top 10 running back, late season breakout potential like we've seen from these other rookie running backs. Love smashing Breece Hall in the 4th round, especially if you go 0 RB the first 3 rounds. Breece Hall is definitely a guy you need to be targeting in your fantasy drafts. We haven't even mentioned the New York Jets offensive line that is going to be much, much better this season. Elijah Vera-Tucker, Laken Tomlinson, and Mekhi Becton, 3 promising offensive line pieces for this Jets team that should aid in Breece Hall's breakout this season. So do not sleep on this running back for the New York Jets, even with Michael Carter being strictly a handcuff for Breece Hall this year. Next guy on our list is going to be Joe Mixon for the Cincinnati Bengals. Yeah, there's a higher price to be paid here for Joe Mixon, but Jonathan Taylor last season was going around where Mixon is, and he ended up being a league winner, and we think Joe Mixon has the same potential this upcoming year. Last year, overall ranks, depending on your league settings, Mixon was around the number 3 to number 4 overall running back for the entirety of the season. But yet this year, he goes off the board as the 6th running back behind guys like Dalvin Cook and Derrick Henry, even though Mixon is multiple years younger than these other aging running backs. Past years holding Mixon back has been the terrible offensive line and the terrible offense in Cincinnati. But what have they done the last 2 seasons? They added Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins on the outside. And this past season, they add a dominant offensive line, multiple pieces coming in to replace the old junior varsity lineup they were putting out there as an offensive line last season. So you take a top 5 running back from last season, and now they add a huge upgraded offensive line in front of him. I'm not taking Dalvin Cook and Derrick Henry above Joe Mixon this season. There's too much potential. We've seen it last year. Everyone fading Mixon given his situation, but now the situation as good as it has ever been for Mixon, and we saw him last season dominate in fantasy, being a top 5 running back. With no serious running back competition in Samaje Perine and Chris Evans, there's no reason to doubt Mixon can't duplicate his performance from last season or even get better given the massive overhaul of that offensive line in Cincinnati. Love taking Joe Mixon at the end of the first round, early second round, and you're getting a top 5 running back. You know you have a chance at the number 1 overall running back in fantasy, given what they've done to that offense in Cincinnati. Love taking Mixon every single chance I get at the end of the first round. Let your other league mates take the Dalvin Cooks and the Derrick Henrys, the older running backs, and take the 26-year-old Joe Mixon, who's going to only improve this upcoming year. The next guy on our list is going to be a much cheaper option than Joe Mixon at the end of the first round. It's going to be Cam Akers in that Breece Hall range that you're actually getting in the 4th round of your fantasy drafts. People are fading Cam Akers due to his performance at the end of the season in the playoffs for the Los Angeles Rams, but this is something we don't want to be holding against Akers. Cuts the timeline for his recovery in half to get back in time for the playoffs to compete for a Super Bowl, which they eventually end up winning. So he's rushing this rehab process back, not fully healthy playing in the playoffs, but you still see the confidence this team has in Akers. Akers getting nearly 80% of the carries when he's coming off an Achilles injury in the playoffs. Most important time of the season, this coaching staff, Sean McVay, is leaning on Akers when it matters the most. This tells me everything I need to know about Darrell Henderson. Akers is clearly the guy who's obviously going to be more healthy than he was at the end of last season. After that Super Bowl, he gets multiple months to recover, takes it easy in training camp, will be ready for the start of the year. And we know the starting running back for this Los Angeles Rams team is due for a huge fantasy production. Nearly 15 fantasy points per game for the number 1 running back under Matthew Stafford and Sean McVay last year as Henderson and Sony Michel filled in. And Cam Akers should fill this hole very nicely this upcoming year. I'm not worried about the production we saw in the playoffs, given the run defenses that the Rams were seeing, the 49ers, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and Cincinnati Bengals, probably 3 of the top defensive lines in the National Football League. So that does not scare me, the production. The volume we saw is more telling for me from what Cam Akers got in those playoffs. And with the Los Angeles Rams being such a dynamic offense, top 10 rushing opportunities for this Rams offense in the NFL. I want the number 1 running back for this team, and if I get him in the 4th round, a huge discount for where Akers was going last year in the beginning of drafts before he tore his Achilles. There's no reason Cam Akers can't finish as a top 6 running back if he's fully healthy this season under Matthew Stafford and Sean McVay. This offense should run wild this upcoming year, adding Allen Robinson, still retaining Cooper Kupp and Matthew Stafford. If I get the number 1 running back for the Rams in the 4th round, definitely a solid chance of becoming a league winner in 2022. The number 4 league-winning running back this upcoming year is going to be Clyde Edwards-Helaire for the Kansas City Chiefs. People have been burnt on Clyde for 2 straight years, drafting him very early in drafts and not getting the production they wanted out of him. But last season, coming into the season, off of stomach surgery, he was significantly lighter and not fully healthy for this Kansas City offense. This took a long time for Clyde to get fully healthy in this offense, and it really showed in his numbers, so we don't want to hold that against him. And what do we know about the Kansas City running back? Starting running back under Patrick Mahomes-led offenses is nearly 15 fantasy points per game. Very similar to what we talked about with Cam Akers in the Los Angeles Rams offense. This Kansas City backfield is something we want to target and get the number 1 running back to win our fantasy leagues. But unlike Cam Akers, you're paying an 8th round price on Clyde this year in drafts. This is way too low in our opinion. You're grabbing a very elusive pass-catching running back for this Mahomes team when it's losing one of its best pass catchers in Tyreek Hill to the Miami Dolphins. Yes, they add guys like Juju Smith-Schuster and Marquez Valdez-Scantling and even Sky Moore in the draft, but this Chiefs team paid a first-round pick for Clyde because they knew exactly what his skill set is and how it's going to translate with Patrick Mahomes. We've seen glimpses of it with Clyde sustaining top 12 running back numbers when fully healthy. And this season, not coming off that stomach surgery like we talked about in last year's offseason. He's going to be 100% good to go week 1, and we love grabbing him, especially when Ronald Jones, there's talks of him not even making the roster. Ronald Jones could factor into the goal line work, which we've seen Clyde struggle with in the past. So the ceiling is capped with Clyde, but he definitely can be a top 12 running back with this Patrick Mahomes team, especially paying this 8th round price on him. I love taking Clyde as my RB2 if you're passing on the position and stocking up on wide receivers and even a tight end quarterback in the middle rounds. Definitely someone to consider drafting with that top 10 upside back in the 8th round of your fantasy drafts. The last guy we're talking about is A.J. Dillon for the Green Bay Packers. Yes, he comes in on the depth chart as the number 2 running back in Green Bay. Carry opportunities do not show this. A.J. Dillon actually out-carrying Aaron Jones from last season. We know Aaron Jones is going to be more dominant in the receiving game, but A.J. Dillon's going to get a bulk of the load on the goal line as he's a much bigger, stronger running back than Aaron Jones and a much younger running back than Aaron Jones. So they're going to lean on this younger running back to get it done inside the 5-yard line like we saw last year. That's not even a prediction. We know we've seen that in the past, and it's only going to get worse for Aaron Jones this upcoming year. We're not fading Aaron Jones by any means because we know his splits when Davante Adams is out of the lineup. He becomes that number one pass catching option for Aaron Rodgers. So Aaron Jones is definitely someone we love taking. But A.J. Dillon, at a slightly discounted price compared to Aaron Jones, is definitely some guy we're all over this upcoming year as well. This offense should be much more run-heavy than it has been in the previous seasons, with limited wide receivers options on the outside. When your number one guy is Allen Lazard, as an offensive coordinator, you got to be emphasizing the run game when you have two very, very talented backs in Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon. So we know the run game is going to be more prevalent in Green Bay this season, and A.J. Dillon's going to get a bulk of those carries. With a top 5 offensive line in Green Bay we've seen for the past 5 years, A.J. Dillon's someone I love grabbing in the 5th to 6th round. Even with his very limited pass-catching ability, the run game is going to be so efficient with an Aaron Rodgers-led offense that we think he's a great league-winning opportunity in the 5th round of your fantasy drafts. But these are 5 guys that we can see winning fantasy leagues in 2022 fantasy football. We went with our most expensive guy, Joe Mixon. Then we followed that up with a couple middle round guys in Breece Hall, Cam Akers, and A.J. Dillon, and even a later round guy in the 8th round, Clyde Helaire. These guys are all in proficient offenses that we could see winning you fantasy leagues in 2022. But we thank you guys for watching. We'll see you guys next week with another episode of the Fantasy Birds.